Have you ever felt like the hardest part of your job isn't it actually the work itself, but getting people to notice the impact you are making? We are told to work hard and let the results speak for themselves, but in reality, 71% of meetings are considered unproductive, and even the most seasoned professionals find themselves burned out, wondering why they are being ghosted by their own leadership when it comes to promotions or new opportunities. The problem is that most of us are operating on autopilot. We show up to meetings with our heads down, hiding behind our phones in the elevator, and using conversational safety nets, like small talk about the weather, because genuine engagement feels too risky. We treat selling our work like a pushy used car sales pitch, so we avoid it entirely to keep from bothering the boss. But what if the secret to being seen as a leader isn't about being the loudest person in the room, but about mastering the small intentional moments that brew into real momentum? Today, we are joined by Amy Reczek, founder of Sales and Presence and author of the amazing book Connect to Close. Amy spent 17 years in the corporate trenches, watching talented people get stuck in energy draining tactics. She's here to show us how to stop winging it and start using a method. I'm not going to say the name method, but something to about brew. So it looks like beer, in fact. To turn about every interaction from an elevator ride to a boardroom presentation into a powerful moment of connection. Amy, thank you very much for making the time to be with us, and welcome to the show.
It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Listen, I was mentioning to you, I read the book
Yeah.
and I want to dig straight ahead in one part that where I had a couple of questions. You
Mhm.
say that your meeting starts before you walk into the room. That's a part that really resonated with me because I remember back in the days in my corporate life that it wasn't the case. For
Mhm.
someone trying to be more visible at work, how can they use those moments in the hallway or the elevator, like having your elevator CEO study to build
Mhm.
internal credibility before a formal presentation even begins?
Ah, you went right down the rabbit hole with like the best question ever. So, yes, your meetings start before the meetings. Everyone who's listening or watching, write that down. Your meeting starts before the meeting. In corporate for years, I didn't think that either. I was also on autopilot, wandering in and maybe grabbing a cup of coffee or hey, good morning. And then, you look at your phone because that's your comfort side, waiting for a meeting to start. And you've lost all of that engagement and that real time connection. And to your point, you don't know who is going to be passing you in the hallway that may inadvertently strike up a conversation when you are open to that conversation coming in. If you have your cell phone with you and you're, buried in your head down into the phone, that conversation is not going to happen. The eye contact's going to be missed. You see that all the time in elevators as well. I love doing this in elevators. The next time you're in an elevator, put everything away, say good morning or hello to whoever's in the elevator, and see what happens. They may be disconnected, but you're going to be hyper aware that you are now present. So it's one of those things that you can do to really elevate your presence and your credibility is for engagement. Engagement gets you everywhere. Disconnection gets you nowhere. So, when we're thinking about a meeting that starts before the meeting, you want to make sure that your mindset's prepped for that. Obviously, you have everything that you need. But then now we're going to talk around your body language and how you're communicating loudly without ever saying anything. And that is things like your posture. I know that sounds super easy, but tell me the last time. I know when I said that, everybody I'm sure sat up a little bit
I
because our
did.
posture is all bad these days, right? So it's like, when was the last time we actually thought about our posture when we're walking, in our corporate setting? So thinking about that because that opens up for conversation. That's why we do that. Putting things away, your hands out invisible, and making sure that you're having eye contact. Those things are going to generate so much more credibility than you would ever imagine. And these are 1% shifts that are not going to change your entire thing. You Everyone here is a professional. You know what you're doing, you know how to do it well. These tactics are to raise you by 1% for this huge impact. I'll give you a live example of how this works. A couple weeks ago, I had a training with about 100 people. We talked about this prior to lunch. And then I said, so now your job at lunch is to make sure that as you walk through this conference and you're walking through this resort, that you are open to communication and connection. So not on your phone, your head's high, your posture's up, right? And so we got back to lunch and I said, so anybody have any stories? Somebody immediately raised their hand and he said, so I got into the elevator, immediately went for my phone because it's habit. He's like, and then I remembered you saying, nope, we can't do that. He's like, so I put everything away. And then all of a sudden, the CEO of our company walked on the elevator and we had a great conversation. So it's one of those magical things that happens. And I have so many of those stories. So start there. Start there and recognizing where you're actually at in your presence and being present a little bit more without having to verbally do that.
Now, I'm going to share another story of
Yeah.
someone that I know. This person, even though is quite used to speaking events, whenever there is a speaking event, I have spotted that this person goes is going to be preparing, reading the bullet points that he needs in order to speak because he's afraid of forgetting something and he's
Yes.
a little bit of a control freak. So there is no interaction before the speaking event.
Mhm.
He just shows to the to the center of the event. He does his job and suddenly disappears. I have lived with that person for more than 40 years. I know that person, and that's why the topic of today is so relevant for that person. People think that that
Yes.
person is an extrovert, but no, he's an introvert. It
Mhm.
might be lack of confidence or is just so much use of his brain to interact with people because he cannot find the right non-awkward way of connecting with simple
Mhm.
talks. He doesn't want to sound like a little bit fluffy because he's asking about the weather or he's asking
Yes.
about something that is completely irrelevant. What would you
Mhm.
say to that person who is in front of you, Amy?
Yeah. So I would say prepare that like you prepare when you're going to be the center of stage. So we don't think about preparing those interactions, those smaller interactions. And if you do have some anxiety or maybe it's a lack of confidence, whatever that is, the only way to work through that is to practice it. And the only way to work through that is to prepare. I used to do this a lot in networking events when I was back in corporate. I'd have to go to conferences or happy hour with lots of people there. Everyone knows the gig. And so let's see if this sounds like anybody who's listening. So you go in, maybe you're looking at your phone, you're checking, you're maybe texting somebody that you're not really texting, or you're pretending you're on a call because you want to look busy. And then you walk in and you go straight to the bar and you get your drink and you're like, okay, whew, now I'm a little settled. Now I can mingle and talk to people, right? It's the same type of effect where we're not prepping for this entrance. We're not prepping to meet people where they are in real time. And so, one of those things that we can do for that, and I used to do that all the time, but we're missing all of that connection when we do that, is to prep your curiosity. What did I learn about people today? Instead of this anxiety or nervousness, switch it, start thinking about it in excitement of what can I learn about people today? What
Hmm.
is something that I can ask? So I don't ask about weather by default because we're going to go to things by default. Unless I will say weather's not off the table completely. I mean, if somebody has like a massive storm or something, like let's lock into that and be like, how are you, right? But really thinking about those things differently. And I always say use the room. The room is a beautiful thing to use. If it's so start there, it's the easiest thing to do. So if you're using the room, ask around, hey, is this the first time at the event for you? Who do you know here at the event? Do you know the person putting on the event? Use the room. If they have a cocktail in their hand, use that. What are you drinking today? Right? So those are those small things that we can shift, but the plan has to be there prior to going. That will
Hmm.
help you in that and help you in that connection. I will say that most salespeople I meet and most people who are doing large business things are not extroverted. I am not extroverted. So when we're doing these things, it takes a lot out of us. So
Exactly.
we want to make sure that we're prepping that to safeguard our energy as well. That will help. Yeah.
I love this angle of curiosity. It is quite interesting because it's something that I can personally relate to. I'm very curious about people, but I'm just afraid of asking the wrong question because
Mm,
I'm a little bit blunt, Amy. It's like
yeah.
I can ask questions like that may sound completely off the table. I don't know about your origins, about I don't know what did you eat yesterday night.
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
awkward socially that I can put myself, but I shouldn't be afraid because sometimes people find it cute
Hmm.
that you
Yeah.
ask weird questions.
Yeah, I would say lean into. I have so many clients like this who are like, I don't want to say the wrong thing, or I don't want to, come off looking strange or quirky or whatever that is. Lean into your authenticity.
Mm,
Lean into it. Hold that power. People are going to resonate and lean into that. Also, not everyone in the world is going to like you, and you're not going to like everyone, and there's not going to be great synergy with everybody that you meet, and that's 100% okay. Say
mm,
thanks for the time. It was great to talk to you. I'm going to mingle and exit. But really be authentic to who you are. A couple years ago, I met a lady in an industry. First time we did a session, I immediately thought to myself, I have no idea how she's in this industry. She is not going to last. Her personality is so adverse
mm,
to any other personalities I had seen in that industry. And I was like, oof, I don't know. I don't know. And then by the second session, I was like, I get it. She's holding her own. She's holding her authenticity. She is right
mm,
there. And people either go to that and stick like glue, or they're like, yeah, not my thing. Right. And so I think in the world of people, it is much better to be your authentic self, to do that instead of making sure that everyone
mm.
feels good around you, because then you're a neutral and not memorable. Right? So we want to be memorable. We want to be who we are and authentic. So obviously we need to be kind and all of those things. But be you. Be your quirky self. Yeah. I love
I
it.
love this. I love this. And that is quite reassuring because you made me think about a conversation that I had with the founder of a, a company called Happiness Index.
Mhm.
And I remember that the conversation, he was sitting beside of me after the speaking event and Irish guy. So I started talking about Peru, where I grew up until the age of 15. And the guy suddenly started, oh, I have been there. And then he was telling me stories. And just by the weird me talking about food in Peru, I ended up having
Yes.
an awesome conversation for 2 hours and more. And now we have become really close because
Oh, I love
we
that.
found out that we are both a little bit too weird.
Yeah. And amazing. And amazing. Yes.
I, but the difficulty at work is that when we advocate for our own work at the office, it can often
Mhm.
feel like a little bit like bragging, showing off.
Yeah.
How can we apply your you framing technique to
Mhm.
our internal updates so that we are highlighting our results in a way that focuses on the value we brought to the team or the company, but it's not about ourselves? Is there an angle that we can do it so that it doesn't sound awkward?
Yes, and it's hard to do. So
Uh,
I will say you framing versus I framing. I'll give a little kind of education on what that means. So I framing is that we always come by I. So I did this year. I completed this. I had X amount come in. I'd like a raise now. I'd like a promotion, right? That's all I framing. You framing is so the last time that we spoke together, you had come up with a plan of action and I had agreed to that of how we're going to build this for my success. And I'd like to talk to you today around how you feel those outcomes were achieved and how you see things going forward from there. That's you framing.
mm,
So it is a practice learned skill. I will tell you that you will never have it down 100%, I don't think. I do this for a living, and I still there's days where I'm like, yep, I just went right back into iframing. And the reason is because on a psychological level, we always think about I.
mm,
That is normal for humans. But when we think about that, then we can say, okay, well, so if I'm doing that as a human, so are my superiors, so is everyone else in my office, so are my clients. So I want to make sure that I'm focusing on them because they're focusing on them. Right? So my outcomes, if I'm successful and I am reporting to someone, then that means they're successful.
Mm,
So thinking around, okay, if I'm successful, then they get to be successful. So let's talk about their success. What are the things that I can do a little bit more for my career, for
mm,
my success, that will then drive you as well, right? Because
mm,
we're in it, inadvertently, whether we love it or not, we're all in this together when we're in
mm,
corporate. And so uh, finding those paths. Now, here's the corporate nuance to that is that you throw all these different personalities in a bucket, which is a corporate high-rise building somewhere, and you say, go play nice in the sandbox, right? That's the reality of corporate, and that's can be difficult. We have all these different personalities. We run up against, people that we really don't work well together with. And so really those nuances are what's going to come into play there and recognizing that everyone is trying to just do their best at the end
mm,
of the day and coming back to that. It's so easy to get off of that. I worked in corporate for a long time and I get it. But coming back to everyone's here to do their best. Everyone's here for X, right? They're here to sustain their family. They're here to, pay off their mortgage. They're here to, whatever that is. We're all in that. All of us are in that. So it's just kind of this hybrid of how do we do it together and limp along and find out the best ways. And communication is the key. And a lot of times we're running so fast these days that we forget to check in on how we're actually communicating for the impact. So our intent is I want to raise. I did good this year.
mm.
I want people to see me as value. All of those. That's the intent. The impact may be very different if I come in hot and say, so this is what I accomplished this year, and I expect a 10% increase for next year. The impact of what actually is going on is not going to land well. So really starting to sit down and think before we speak of how do I do this to best serve everyone in the room that's inadvertently also going to serve me.
Hmm. I have the impression that it's so delicate, this type of conversations, because there is so many
Yeah.
frontiers. So there is the frontier so that we don't have to be focused on the I framework. That's one. There is the other frontier is that how to avoid overdoing it so that we are not brown
Yes.
nosing our
Yes.
our boss.
Yes. 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 I would say if it's not authentic to you, throw it out. Always, always, always be authentic to you. That doesn't mean get uncomfortable to try something new.
Mm,
So we want to get uncomfortable in those settings to grow. And the best way to do that is to just say that. I love the elephant in the room concept. I use it all the time. So walking in, for example, and saying, okay, so I'm really working on how to communicate in a better fashion to really create the impact that I'm looking for my teammates or my client, whatever that is. And I'm working on my communication a little bit differently, and I would love to have your help in that.
mm,
Elephant in the room. Call it out. Call it
mm.
out. And we love to help people. People love to help people. So when we're in that situation, then it's a value add for both because if you have somebody that you're reporting to, in most cases, they're going to be like, "Oh, that's cool. Like, tell me how I can support you. How can I help you?" Right? And then we're on this train together already instead of kind of sucking up or brown nosing, if you will.
Yeah. When you started writing your book, Connect to Close, were you speaking to someone like me, or were you speaking to yourself some years back? What was the intention behind
Mm,
writing?
that's such a beautiful question. Um, the intention came from the years of now owning this company and seeing where clients get stuck over and over and over again.
Mm,
It's the same pattern. Uh, Different industries, different people, same pattern.
mm,
And what I recognized in my corporate career too was this is what I was missing. It's why I created the company. But in doing the work with people and getting those real life examples and sitting down and doing coaching and consulting with teams, it's like these are the buckets that are continually missed when we're thinking about how we can shift our communication 1% to have more success in everything that we do. That's where it came from was there needs to be a easy methodology to follow if somebody wants to follow that. It needs to have where that fits within certain slices of the pie within corporate, and then how to actually do it. Because one of the things that I cannot stand about corporate training, sales training, books on sales, all of the things. And I think one of the things that I had mentioned in there too, where sales is a very loud space. There's a lot of people in it. A lot of people telling you what to do and how to, exactly like you need to make 15 follow-up calls or you need to, dial for dollars. That's all great. Here's the thing. Everyone knows that.
Hmm.
Everyone knows that. That is nothing new. So for me, the thing that really I could not find was the how. How do I do that? That is amazing. I have been on this client. They say that they're going to close next month. Now I have a boss on my ass saying, "You said they were going to close last month. Where's the deal? Follow up with them again." Well, no shit, right?
Hmm.
Like how tell me the how in between that. Like what do I say for that re-engagement? And then that's where the psychology side of that and the human connection side of that really happens. And that's what we talk about through the book is those in between hows, those micro moments to really set you up for success. Thinking about those things a little bit differently so that it's not a blanket, hey, following up for the 15th time, wondering where you're at with this, contract. Let's actually have a human connection there and a human conversation. And then what did we miss in the back that we can bring forward to support and help us? So there's lots of different nuances on those things, but that's really where it came from was this what I was missing in my career and then creating it and then continually seeing where those gaps were with clients.
Hmm. You're right. These books, sales training books, that I've read in the past, that very transactional. It's about following a process with the aim of reaching an objective. While your way of explaining this achieving the objective is about the connection, about everything that we miss when we are focused on just pushing, nudging,
Yeah.
or sometimes even manipulating. And
Yeah.
you get away from that stuff and you say, it is about you and him. It is not about the
Mhm.
object, the transaction that goes into
Right.
in between. And that is
Right.
amazing. That is beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's hard, right? It's hard to stay in that. It's hard to do that when you have people in your ear. It's hard to do that when you have a quota. It's hard to stay in that because when we start getting a little anxious of oh, I'm not going to hit my numbers this month, or my boss is kind of not happy with where things are. All of those things start now an emotional side in you.
Hmm.
And so, that emotion comes up and it comes through to the client. So, to your point, then all of a sudden we inadvertently become pushy when we really just aren't pushy people. We become a little bit anxious on where is this? I needed this, right? And that's an I-framing. So now we're back to I-framing, and then the client's going to push even further because that is a feeling that they're also going to receive. So recognizing that it takes a lot of work. The other thing too that I will say with this is that I wanted to make sure that this is a routine that people could do within where they needed it. So, thinking around, okay, well, you need, if I'm looking at like a systems training for sales, well, you need a CRM and you need all these things.
Hmm.
And then your life's going to be complete, right? Because you have all these things and we need them. That's a support. But again, then it goes back to the how. It goes back to that communication in between that's there. So I may have somebody that I'm working with that says, yeah, I'm locked in. I have absolutely no problem dialing the phone, what to say or get meetings. I just had this last week. I had a client that said, I have no problem getting meetings. My problem is once I have a meeting, then the door is wide open and I don't know what to do next. So then that's the routine that's happening right now for that person. So when we take the book and we take the method, then some of the things we talk about isn't going to pertain to him because he's already there. So then let's move on to this over here for you. So it's not like I love it because you're not changing you. You are shifting in a pattern where you have these spots and everyone knows where their spots are.
Mm.
Everyone knows where their gaps are. So take what you need from this and then put it into real time where you need it. It's not an overhaul. It's not an overhaul. It's just that lift where you need it.
So my gut feeling tells me that this book is not specifically for salespeople. It is for anyone, and that's why this discussion is going to the angle. This can be
Mm-hmm.
helpful for this employee who is working his ass off, and
Yeah.
nobody noticed the hell how much he has been
Yes.
doing, and we're all at the end selling. But there is ways, even though you might be a little bit introvert,
Mm-hmm.
or something else, to
Yeah.
create this connection because it is easier to influence someone that likes you. It's easier
Yes.
to influence to someone who has certain similarities. But these similarities, you don't know about it until you start interacting.
Yes. Yeah.
I cannot find it
Yeah.
in LinkedIn. What is the similarity between you and me? That would be impossible. So I need to interact
Yep.
with you in order to know what is the angle, what is the thing that makes you.
Yeah, yeah. And if you can't find it, right, or if you don't feel like you really vibe, then back to earlier, stay curious about who they are. There's
Mm,
always something that you can learn. There's always something that you can take away. The best thing about corporate to me with this kind of mix of people and how to navigate through that is that there are so many things that we learn that we can take and make our own. And there are so many things that we learn that we can say, okay, nope, I'm going to shelf that because that is not my personality. That's not really how I want to angle myself. There's so many things there. So we're learning in real time. If you think back to childhood, you're doing the same thing in school. You
mm,
are amongst all these kiddos, and y'all are just curious about each other. And it's when we think about it now, and I'm envisioning a playground with lots of kids running around and trying to figure out who they are and who their friends are and what they like. We still do that when we're
mm,
40. We still do that. We just call it something different, or we make
mm,
sure that we think it's buttoned up. It doesn't need to be.
mm,
We don't need to be loud. We don't need to be, completely out of mind, but it can be fun. It can be fun to stay in that curiosity mode to say, oh my gosh, you went and, parasailed last weekend. I have no interest in that. I don't ever want to be off the ground that way. But dang, tell me about that. Is that scary? Like, I need to see pictures. What's happening? Right? So we can still be in that curiosity mode to learn. Yeah.
mm. Now, let's get back a little bit about the topic that we already mentioned before. So, you have mentioned in your book about these conversational safety nets that we grab onto when we are uncomfortable. So, for someone trying to be more visible at the company, in a company town hall or a networking mixer, what is the
Mm-hmm.
first safety net they should drop to ensure that they are seen as a leader?
Mm. That they should drop. Ooh, so many good
Yes.
things. So we're going to inadvertent this. So the thing that you should drop are the things that are in your hands. So that's the first one. So I guarantee you that if you're walking into a conference, you're walking into a networking event, you are holding on to something because that's a security blanket. We have all of these self-soothing mechanisms
Yeah.
within our body and how we do that. So one is a phone. That's the
Mm,
easiest. Put it away. Put it completely away. The second one is your pockets. If everything's out and put away, you're gonna put your hands in your pockets. Take them out. Be more open and visible for connection. If you have a hard time with eye contact, make sure that you're making eye contact. I know that when we are in a sea of people, it's so much easier to just scan
mm.
heads.
Exactly.
Don't do that. Don't do that, right? You want to make that eye contact. So I would say that those are the first things to do away with. Secondly, do away with what comes out of your mouth first of, hi, I'm Amy, how are you? and then there's like this awkward, I don't know what to do now. Or, you walk up to somebody and then you give your whole spiel of who you are. Or, hey, I see and you're looking at somebody's, name badge and you introduce yourself. So we want to strip that because number one, that's a safety. Number two, it's not planned and intentional. Number three, everyone is doing it.
Mm.
So we want to strip that so we have impact and we look and feel, and people are responding to us like a leader, like we have credibility. So everything, if you think of someone in a large setting and you notice them and you're attracted to whatever is happening there, they're usually around a handful of people. You're like, gosh, do I know that person? Or I feel like I need to have a conversation with them. They're really impressive. How are they impressive? You have not talked to them at all, but they have this thing, that quote unquote it thing, right? I will tell you that is intentional, that is highly practiced. You can do the same thing. And it starts with the nonverbal, and then it starts with your intentional communication. So then thinking around, how do I do that differently then? How would I introduce myself to not be the sea of everybody else and then not know where the conversation's going? So have a bit of a plan. It may be, hi, I'm Amy. I see that you are Jackie from Aquarix. It's lovely to meet you today. Have you been to this event before? Be intentional
Mm.
instead of, hi, I'm Amy, right? So be a little bit intentional. It doesn't have to be completely different, just 1% shift. Intentionality.
You know what, Amy? It's something that I'm going to share that in Europe, so we always believe that Americans are super good at communication. Like they have this, they're not ashamed of anything. Like, and I don't know, the European education is made in such a way that you don't know how to speak. So if you're an engineer, you're even worse. So because you will
Mhm.
not have a single class of how to communicate, you will not have so many presentations. You don't have like working groups where everybody's presenting. So my question to you is the approach that you are taking to in order to uh, that we are able to connect, would it work with this shy French guy or this humble Swiss person? Is it something that any culture can take and say, yeah, there is something to fine tune in
Yes,
this side?
100%, absolutely. I think so. Let's step back just a tad and say the culture needs to be represented. Obviously, if there are things within that culture that are not done, then that's completely okay. So things like some cultures do not put hands on the table to be seen, right?
Mm,
So we don't want to do that. Then let's roll our chair back a little bit, put them in our lap so they are still visible to the room, but then they are not culturally accepted on the table, right?
mm,
So there are those differences. But yes, 100%. Humans are humans.
mm,
There's a reason why, if we have different language, we can still communicate.
mm,
And the beauty of that is that all of a sudden, if we can't speak to each other, then we are hyper present of really watching and interacting. There's a beauty to that. So I think, anyone can do that. We have to be more intentional around it. And then the introverted side is actually one of those really great assets as well. Years ago, I had a mentor of mine say to me, it's phenomenal to watch you walk into a room because by the end of it, everyone feels like they know you and they know nothing about you.
mm,
And so that is one of those things that it's hyper intentional for me to be very present and curious about others. Now, if they want to be curious about me, I'll open that door. But a lot of times people aren't. And so
mm,
they don't, I'll find out so much more information about them. And then they're like, oh, I totally know. We had such a great conversation. And then if you'd ask them what they know about me, it's not much because, because people are all I introverted, right? So it's one of those things that like you can be an introvert and you can hold your space beautifully. You don't have to be loud. That's the thing about this is that you can be really intentionally authentic. That doesn't mean you have to be loud. Some of the most beautiful, authentic people that we can think about in the world in history were not loud. They held
mm,
their space very beautifully and they were soft. Soft is not a negative. They were
mm.
soft. It was very powerful. And people were attracted to that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So you can find your own rhythm in that.
And that's critical what you're saying. Find your own, because it connecting with people, it doesn't depend on the ease that you have to talk. I know that in certain cultures we are more vocal. Mediterranean people, for instance, are more vocal. They're yelling and all the stuff, and they take a lot of space. And
Mm-hmm.
suddenly there is the humble German who will say less, but when he says one thing, everybody listens.
Everybody
Um,
listens.
I have the impression that indeed we just need to be mindful that every culture will have his addition, his taste,
Mm-hmm.
his particularities to adapt in the process. I can easily imagine, probably that most of the Latinos are funny, so they always start cracking a joke that even though it may not be the best joke in the world. Japanese people with the hierarchical view of in the corporate
Huh?
world, there is certain level of adaptations, but the process
Yes.
itself about curiosity, about engaging in small conversations that you have prepared. I think that what the hell, that is
Yeah.
true for humankind.
Yeah. Yes. 100%. 100%. It goes across the board. Yes.
Hmm. Now, this is something that we always hear. So that visibility isn't just about speaking, it's about being a high value presence. And you talk in your book about the shift from listening to respond to listening to hear, which I find that this is one of the most difficult things to do, because one, we are humans, and on top, if you have a little bit
Mm.
of an engineering background, you think that you know everything in the world.
Yeah.
Yes, I yeah. So how do we do this? How do we master this power of the pause and help an employee stand out as a leader during these pressuring internal meetings, knowing that we are not that good at listening?
Yeah, we're not that good at listening. What's interesting about that too is I will ask this question to a room of 100 people. Who here feels like they're good at listening? And more than half of the room will always raise their hand, which is phenomenal to me because we have a very big miscue there of
Exactly.
that people really think that they do listen well, and we do not. We just do not across the board. Again, we are embedded into I, so it's all about us. A lot of times, it's all about if we are in an internal meeting, what's happening, right? Who's talking? Maybe the person talking I don't really care for, so I'm gonna disassociate and not listen, and then I'll respond with what I have to say. Maybe the kiddos are out sick today, and I'm thinking about them, and so I'm not really hearing what's going on. And then when it's my turn to speak, I just speak up, right? So many things in life happen that way. So, really taking a moment, number one, to say, how can I be in this for the next hour? How can I be more present sitting here instead of my brain going to the things that are on my computer, especially if you're doing a virtual meeting as well? It's super easy. Pop up that email, check the phone, go on social media. So, your challenge is how can you do that? It's going to be super uncomfortable, people. You're going to feel like you're sitting there for 5 hours instead of one. But try that, start that there. Second, if you have a question that you know the answer to or that you could find, do not ask it. Take that off the plate. There's so many times where someone will say to me something like, "So how long have you owned your business?" Like, "So have you looked on LinkedIn?" Because it's right there, right? So that to me lowers your credibility because you did not take 2 seconds to be in that curious mode to learn about me. So making hyper aware. And so what happens there, the reason why that's happening is because of our anxiety, because of our a little bit of our confidence that's lacking there. We are filling to get comfortable. So it's the exact same thing as when we go to a networking event or a conference and we go to the bar first and then we get comfortable. Same scenario in those meetings. That's what you're doing. So making sure that those questions actually you want a response to, that they're not something that you're just having them talk and that you are already onto something else that you're going to ask and you're not hearing anything. That's the first thing. Secondly, um, here's a hard one, right? So we always want to get to what we want to talk about. So we may ask a question and then we have a response already in line, right? That response may not be what they need. It may not be the value for them, but we think that it is. So we want to make sure that we are really listening, because the only way that we can validate that we are really good listeners is if the other person feels heard.
Hmm.
Let me say that again. So the only way we are actually good listeners is if the other person feels heard. And the way that we can start figuring out if they feel heard is the more they talk, they feel heard. If they don't feel heard, they're not gonna, right? We've all had that where we feel like somebody's not listening to us and we're like, all right, I'm out. I'm not gonna say anything anymore. Um, so that's number one. Number two, they start physically, they will be different. They'll start leaning in, or they will be more engaged and active in how they're speaking. So we're watching for those cues, we're listening for those cues to make sure that we are actually listening. We can actually ask it as well, right? So to make sure that I am hearing you correctly, this is where you want to go with this. This is the timeline. These are the next steps.
Hmm.
How does that feel for you? That's a conversation. That's listening. That's, kicking the ball back and forth instead of I have it now, then you have it. I have it now, then you have it. That's an actual, combination of mutual success. One of the best lines that I have, and this happened to me years ago as well with somebody else that's also in the industry. So take this one, make it your own, but tell me more. Tell me more is your best question slash statement you could ever ask. If you don't like the format of that, then change it up. Can you expand on that a little bit for me? Okay, I'm getting this. Let's talk about this one further. Can you go into detail on that for me? Right? Tell me more. Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. So instead of going right to what you have to say, sit with them in what they're talking about. Let them tell you more about what it is that's on their mind, what it is that's on the agenda, what's happening next. You'll get a lot further, and then you're actually listening because you do not know those answers.
Hmm.
So those are a few different steps. Listening is a tough one. I will say
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's not like an easy, and everything in the world will come at you to skew you off of it. So yes.
Despite the fact that in most of the books about communication and selling, the listening part, it takes like 1 to 3 chapters out of 10 or 20. uh,
Mhm.
it is the most difficult one. It's the most,
Yes.
the one where we struggle the most. I want you to imagine this person who is listening to this episode and thinking about, yeah, my job is supply chain finance. I don't need to be selling anything,
Hmm.
or I can do it a little bit later on. Uh, to this person who is postponing the time to put themselves together in order to start looking at through the lenses of connecting to close.
Hmm.
What would you say to that person who's listening to us and is just postponing that moment?
Hmm. That you've already been selling yourself and probably not well. We sell ourselves every single day. You are
Mm,
in the selling business.
mm,
Everyone on this planet, whether they are quote unquote in the definition of what sales is or not, we are constantly in a push or pull negotiation or selling every single day. We're in it when we buy our coffee. We're in it with our spouses or our
mm,
partners. We're in it with our friends,
mm,
right? It's a constant. It's a human connection. That's
mm,
what it is. So I always say all selling is communication. That's all it is. And if you want to get anywhere, whether you are in a sales role, whether you are in a management role, whether you are a cashier somewhere, whatever it is, you are constantly being evaluated by others.
mm,
Constantly. Because that's what we do as humans. We have a split second first impression. That number varies every once in a while. Sometimes I hear it's like a 3%. But really, it's instant when we make a first impression with someone. Now, here's the kicker, is that it's 76% of the time accurate.
mm,
76% of the time accurate. Hoofda. So if we do not come off well in our communication on how we're moving through the world, then it's a lot harder for us to climb that mountain when the time is right. I'll give you a live example. I was on a flight coming back from a training that I was doing. I was tired. I usually don't engage when I travel because I'm spent, which is totally fine, by the way. Give yourself your own grace and fill your cup back up when you need to. And I was sitting in the middle seat, yay me, of two people who knew each other. And I was like, what is happening? Why? Why? And so they were, talking around, man, I'm like, okay, this is lovely. Um, and they were nice people, but then the gentleman was like, "Oh, so what are you doing here?" And started kicking up a conversation. And I was just not there, right? And so I missed my opportunity. And he asked me what I did, and I started my elevator pitch horribly. I was like, yeah, what do I do? Well, I own this company and I do corporate. Oh, it was the whole time I was talking, I was like, awesome. This sucks. Like I need to shut up. Like, oh my God, right? And I was like, okay, well, whatever. I was like, so what, tell me what you do, right? The common kick the can back. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I just took over as the head of sales for X company, which happens to be an extremely large company here in the U.S." And I was like, "Oh, of course you are. Of course you are." I completely ruined that, right? We're still in connection today. I still do not have their business today. But it's a real life scenario of I was not selling myself, right? I was not coming with this is how amazing I am. This is what I do. And everyone is amazing. Everyone has that. Right? So really showing up in that way. The other way, that's an extreme. But let's take your partner or your roommate or your best friend, and you call up and you're like, "Hey, I am thinking we order in tonight for food." And in your brain, you're like, "I really want Italian tonight." Right? And so they're like, "Oh, yeah, let's get tacos." Well, that's not quite Italian. So now guess what you're in? You are in a selling negotiation, my friend. It may not seem like it because you know them personally and it's a lot easier, it feels easier, but that's what you do. That's what you do every single day. So if you don't feel like you're in that mind frame of needing it now, you're already in it. It's a life skill. It is a human connection life skill. So taking a few things and saying, how can I show up a little bit differently? Stay in that curiosity of like, will people start talking to me? If I make eye contact, will somebody stop me while I'm walking the dog? Just those little things to be a little bit more curious in that element. You don't have to change up everything, feeling like you're not in sales or you're not ready or you don't need that credibility. You do, and you're already showing it one way or the other. And so being curious within your own self of how you're communicating, I would say, is where you start.
I wanted to build on what you just said because lately I have been writing a lot of articles about people who are in the 50s.
Hmm.
And I have been interviewing some of them, and some of them they say, I don't need to sell myself anymore. I have already done the things that I needed
Hmm.
to do. And I think this is one of the biggest bullshit that we tell ourselves. By the
Hmm.
way. I think especially maybe with the age, we become a little bit more picky, and
Hmm.
we are more ourselves because we don't have to oversell ourselves. We
Yeah.
have already done a couple of things, but we want to find this connection with somebody who is as critical as us or who has
Yes.
done something in his life that is completely different, and we want to learn from this person. So I think that being able to connect, maybe not with the principle of selling yourself, but
Hmm.
to connect in order to learn and also
Hmm.
to be likable, it is something that is quite an amazing skill to have also in your 50s. So don't give
Hmm.
up with the age. The age doesn't mean you don't have to sell yourself. It always happens because you want to please this perle rare, this person who is quite unique somewhere, and to find
Hmm.
that person. That
Yeah.
was my
Yeah.
my 2 cents, Amy.
Well, I want to say a few things about that. I think it shifts. So no, you don't necessarily need to sell yourself on this grand stage of I have a career, I'm supporting, I'm doing all those things. I think it shifts. I feel that. I'm not in my 50s quite yet, but I do feel that of I don't need to find out who I am anymore. Like I
Mm,
know who I am. So
mm,
there's that shift, number one, right? I'm not. I don't need to be in the curiosity state of like, ooh, do I like that? Ooh, do I want to go do that with them? Um, that's not it. So I think that it shifts a little bit into, and it's like, okay, I've checked the boxes. Like if somebody were to ask me, hey, what's still on your checklist for a career? I mean, I have things, but if somebody were to say, let's not do it anymore, I'd say, okay, because I have done that, right?
Hmm.
So it shifts a bit into more of that curiosity state, to your point of learning about these wonderful people doing just amazing things. I did the example of walking our dog. I live in California. Everyone has a dog here, literally everyone. Everyone walks their dogs multiple times a day. I cannot tell you how many people I know in the neighborhood, more so, how many dogs I know and what their ailments are, right? Um, and it's fascinating. So when we walk, we can be like, "Oh, John, how are you? How is little Ellie today and her little limp? And like, what's going right?" And so these are those nugget things that we as humans, we have to have connection. So it doesn't need to be this big drawn out thing. It could be a beautiful moment of a hello while you're walking your dog. That's that's that curiosity of the connection and quote unquote selling your stuff. You're still showing up. You're still interacting. It shifts, I think. Yeah.
Amy, so if somebody wants to reach you out to discuss
Mhm.
about mastering this executive presence or getting noticed by leadership, or even to sell better because they are really salespeople, how
Yes.
can they reach you out in the best way?
Yes. So they can go to amyrezek.com. They can also grab the book on Amazon. Just research my name or connect close. It's right there. And LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with anybody.
Great. I'm going to put all of these sites below this episode. Amy, it
Yep.
has been really nice to speak to you in a topic that touches me a little bit more close to
Mm,
me because it has been a
yes.
struggle for me for such a long time. Amy, thank you very much for your time. It was lovely to spend time with you.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here.